Princess Celestia, the Changeling Queen, Chapter 11, Part 2.
I have to say that I'm surprised by your constant attention, young hatchling. Not every changeling would have sat through my nephew's lecture without at least trying to tune it out.
She shook her head to clear it and then asked her final question.
Do you have any family that you worry about?
Somehow, the changeling seemed to wilt at the question, yet it was only for a moment before his stoic expression returned. With a sigh, Alternia called for the guards to take the changeling away before turning to her friends.
I believe, nephew, while your tactic was effective, it was perhaps too effective,
Rasped Luna, still in a daze. Blueblood harumphed indignantly, but was quelled by Alternia's groan.
I concur,
Added the changeling. Blueblood sighed, only for Alternia to place a comforting hoof on his shoulder.
Still, thanks to Blueblood wearing down the infiltrator, I was able to get a reaction out of him. Infiltrator?
Questioned Luna. Alternia gently tapped her forehead with her hoof.
The changeling was an infiltrator, or as we sometimes call them, a love collector. Normally, his job is to collect love from pony settlements that he has embedded himself in. Yet he was part of a purely offensive attack where his skills became meaningless.
Continued Luna, eyes narrowed in suspicion, and the changeling nodded sagely.
Precisely. What's more, his reaction when I asked him the last question was most curious. I think I know what is ailing Chrysalis's hive, but I'm not entirely sure why.
Perhaps the next one will give us an answer,
Said Blueblood, optimistically.
Maybe. I shall interrogate him.
Said Alternia. The third changeling was also a male. Unlike the first infiltrator, though, he had a very thick, heavy-looking carapace that was heavily notched and scratched. Some of these wounds were new. Alternia could tell that he had been in the thick of the fighting in Canterlot. That and the hardened look in his eyes identified him to Alternia as one of the soldier caste. However, it was the older wounds that intrigued the changeling, particularly 4 tiny pockmarks on his neck. It looked as if he had been bitten by another changeling.
So, what is your name?
Inquired Alternia, her voice regal yet sincerely kind. It had been too long since Alternia had talked to her own kind, and even if they were across opposing sides, she still wished contact. This time, she was rewarded.
It is none of your business,
Grunted the changeling. If Alternia hadn't been playing the part of the princess, she would have been doing a jig on her seat in glee.
Then I shall not demand you of a shieldling,
Said Alternia. The changeling started, and Alternia grinned inwardly. It seemed like some past changeling customs and titles had survived in Chrysalis's hive.
How do you know that, pony?
Demanded the changeling, his buzzing lisp charged with disbelief.
Your carapace is littered with wounds, both old and new. It is quite obvious as to what your profession is, shieldling. Not to mention, I am wise beyond your years,
Said Alternia. The changeling frowned.
That title is one that has not been used since bygone days to describe the protectors of our hive.
The soldier turned his head down to the bare table.
It is a title that I do not deserve.
Alternia leaned forward a bit, her voice gentle.
And why not? Your conduct is admirable, and if I'm not mistaken, you are well educated too.
For a moment, the changeling relaxed, but just as he did, he flinched and tightened up.
You're just being nice in order to make me lower my guard. You will get nothing from me.
I would be deceiving you if I said that all I wanted to do was talk, but it has been a while since I've conversed with their kind,
Said Alternia truthfully. She calmly met the changeling's wary gaze with her own.
We ponies do not wish harm upon your people. It is not too late for the changeling race to make peace.
The soldier sighed.
Perhaps for other hives, but even before we attacked Canterlot, it was too late for our hive.
Alternia blinked.
What do you mean?
His gaze hardening, the soldier met Alternia's eyes.
She who raises the sun. You are indeed wise and cunning, as the legends say, yet be warned. Our hive will not leave this world quietly. Your kind are not the first who have tried to remove us. I will say no more on this matter.
Alternia nodded in understanding, and called for the guards to take the changeling away.
That was enlightening, but at the same time of great concern,
Said Luna. The lunar princess appeared unworried, except for the telltale sign of her tail, which swung slowly from side to side. Alternia's eyes were narrowed, and her hoof was absent-mindedly drawing a circle on the table.
I agree. I think I can confidently tell you my findings.
The changeling stood on her hooves and faced her fellow interrogators.
We know that the chief reason the changelings attacked was for love, their food source. However, what I didn't realize until today was that to a great degree, their attack was made out of desperation,
Announced Alternia. The changeling focused on the alicorn.
Luna, you fought the changelings at the royal wedding. Can you tell us how well they fought?
Luna coughed, recalling how she and her lunar guards had been ambushed as she had been preparing for the wedding's reception.
Not very well at all. They tried to overwhelm myself and my entourage with their numbers, but needless to say, they did not succeed. I talked to my student earlier. She and her friends had managed to fight off an entire platoon of changelings, and while I do not doubt the capabilities of my students and her friends, the fact that they did so without any significant injuries amazed me. Blueblood, you have an eye for detail. Did you notice anything particular about the prisoners?
Blueblood stopped running a hoof through his immaculate mane and slowly raised his hoof to his chin.
They looked a little on the thin side, Auntie. In particular, the holes in their legs were gapingly wide. I mean, you have holes in your legs, but theirs were rather large.
Now put together the guarded reactions of the changelings to my questions about their hive or family's well-being, and the soldier's statement that it was too late for our hive.
Even before Alternia finished, Luna's eyes had widened in realization. Blueblood had listened to the rest of what Azan had to say, and then pondered for a moment longer. Yet as the prince came to the same conclusion as Luna had, he gasped.
Auntie, are you saying that the changelings attacked Canterlot because they were starving?
Demanded Blueblood.
Yes. However, as to what forced Chrysalis's hive to such a sorry state, I am not so certain of. It may appear that they have been in conflict with another hive,
said Alternia haltingly.
That would make the most sense. Who else could have been the other enemy that had tried to remove the changelings? If our neighbors had a confrontation on a scale in which it would have been forcing Chrysalis to such actions, we would have surely heard of it.
Pointed out Luna. Alternia nodded her approval.
I also suspect that the bite mark on the soldier's neck was from another changeling,
added Blueblood. To Alternia and Luna's surprised glances, he snorted.
I mean, it didn't look like it came from any other animal in the royal menageries, or from any species we know of.
Alternia grinned, and rubbed the top of Blueblood's head affectionately, despite his protests.
You're absolutely correct, Blueblood. Now, let us focus on finding out whom could have forced Chrysalis's hoof. The mere existence of this mysterious hive or hives will make this far more difficult to predict Chrysalis's actions and will create complications if we wish to mount an effective defense of Equestria,
said Alternia. Luna and Blueblood agreed, and took their seats. The fourth changeling struggled as she was brought into the room, as she was roughly deposited into the chair, where she sat still, facing the looks of two alicorns and an abnormally serious prince.
Hello. What is thy name?
Asked Luna. The changeling sneered at the princess, her fangs gleaming in the dim light of the shadows.
Oh, cut to the chase, princess. Didn't you want to blast me with your magic? Oh, or perhaps you would like to hit me with your slippered hooves and scare me, Nightmare Moon.
Luna almost knocked her chair over as she lunged at the prisoner, but Blueblood quickly grabbed the princess's leg, restraining her. Firmly pulling Azan down to her chair, Blueblood gave his most winning smile at the changeling. It was the gleaming grin that would have caused any mare in Equestria to faint, but it didn't even elicit a snort from his target. Undaunted, the prince employed his silkiest, most boyish tone.
Oh, there's no need for that, miss. We ponies are civilized creatures. Surely we can come to a compromise,
proposed Blueblood. Most females would faint at this amount of charm, but Blueblood's lack of experience in courting changelings doomed him to failure. For his efforts, the prince was met with green spit to his face. With a high-pitched squeak, Blueblood fell off of his chair, his hoofs pawing for his hookerchips as he tried to wipe away every drop of the offending liquid off of his face.
You ponies are so soft. All you know is peace and happiness. I knew you couldn't get anything useful from my comrades. They were all dragged out with not even a scratch on their shells. It's like you don't even want to interrogate us. So come on, ponies, scare me,
bellowed the changeling, her challenge echoing throughout the confines of the chamber. With a coarse, ear-grating hell screech, Alternia moved her chair away from the table and stood on her hooves, trotting slowly and methodically to the changeling's side. Her flowing tail trickled slowly, uncoiling like a dragon's.
Well, perhaps the darkest part of my heart wishes to do so, but there are other ways to inspire fear in one's heart. Isn't that right, Chevalier?
Asked Alternia. Her voice was soft, too soft. It sent shivers up Blueblood's and even Luna's spines. The changeling raised an eyebrow.
You're gonna have to do better than that, Sunbutt.
The insult didn't even make Alternia flinch.
Oh, I can do much better. I know what forced your queen to attack Canterlot,
said the princess, her voice oddly calm. As dismayed dread spread across the changeling's face, Alternia continued, each word striking like an arrow into its target.
You are hungry, desperate for love, and yet there's nothing to be had. Your hive's forces are great in number, but the majority of them are enlisted workers, infiltrators, and soldiers that have seen far too many battles. It's not an army. It's an untrained, weaponless militia fielded against the greatest city of ponydom in a desperate bid to take it and enslave the love of its inhabitants. And even if your plan had succeeded, the love would have only been enough to feed you for a few months. But that was just how desperate your queen was.
The Chevalier threw herself forward in a vain attempt to sink her fangs into Alternia's neck, but she danced out of her reach.
You know nothing, you pampered prissy princess! You have everything that you could ever want! Those who love you, minions to serve you, you've never been pushed to the brink of despair and death!
Within her memories, Alternia saw her sister's spear arching towards her, felt the pain as it pierced her stomach, the vast emptiness as her eyes began to close, her immeasurable sorrow at being unable to avenge her mother's death, and 1,000 years had only tinged the grief that she felt from that one day.
You were right, Hatchling. I do not know of your despair, but I'm not alien to it. What's more, I have also been to the brink of death,
said Alternia, her voice tightening with restraint. All of a sudden, her face warped into a snarl so horrifying it wouldn't look out of place on Nightmare Moon's features.
But I did not lock a loving bride into a cavern for her to starve. I did not deceive her loving groom to betray the country that he loved. I did not launch a cowardly attack on a race without trying to negotiate, without any form of declaration of war,
and on a day of celebration,
roared Alternia, her roar breaking like the roar of a thunder in the distance. It blasted the breath and bravado out of the Chevalier, and bound her to the wooden chair as effectively as ropes. Whereas a few moments ago, the Changeling was trying to attack Alternia, but now, she was squirming in her seat, in a hopeless effort to escape.
It fills me with pity to see that Chrysalis's Chevaliers have fallen so far. Have you faced any worthy opponents in your life?
Sighed Alternia, her mocking edge cutting through the air like a whip. Recoiling as if she had been slapped, the Changeling snarled, but her body shivered.
I fought manticores, giant scorpions, and the Shadow Empire, more than anything that your royal guard has ever seen.
This time it was Luna's turn to snort derisively. The Alicorn reclined on her chair, nonchalantly turning away from the Chevalier, a mocking grin on her fair features.
Manticores and giant scorpions. They are all but twisted monsters, easy for any trained squad to handle. Oh, and in all my long years, I have never heard of this Shadow Empire.
Well, of course you wouldn't. Those changelings stalk in the darkness, hiding amongst ponies, ready to strike at our hive mates at any moment. What they've done, they blend back into the crowd like ghosts. They're not normal changelings.
Alternia twisted her head slightly to look at the Chevalier.
Not normal changelings? What made them so abnormal?
They don't run. They fight like dragons, protecting their hordes.
The Chevalier stopped, her jaw agape.
You tricked me, you cunning.
Alternia and Luna winced as they realized the act was up, and the Changeling began to blaze away at the trio with obscenities. Most of it were in the half-intelligible buzzes and hisses that made the Changeling language. Luna and Blueblood cringed as the guards that Alternia had summoned dragged the snapping Changeling away from the table in the interrogation room. The poor wooden table groaned in protest as it was battered by the flailing Changeling, but held. With a flash of his horn, Blueblood shut the door behind the departing guards with his magic, and shook his head. Some Changelings got some temper tantrums, damn. And again, we've seen it before, but still, damn. Anyways, let's get on to our tranquil donators. Top donators: TacoCat598, Peter Coulthard, J Tin Man, Darkside, Ponyman, and Gauntlet. Zar630, Raiden, Black Moonheart, Drake Lovedragon, Dospo, Delta Omega, RuneTyther9852, Hunter Norman, Dash of Evergreen, Rodney Dragonwolf, Secret Moon, Tal Rasha, The Toilet Snake, Sword Brother and Mordred, Ronin Wandering, Random Person Man Guy, Easy, Jack Hedge, Sky Ochia, Leslie Prickett, Jordan Peterson, Crimson Kitten A9, Lightskin, Monster Kitty, Starlight Glimmer, Lightning Blitz, Squiddy Boy, David E. Sanchez, Soul Dragon, Gaggy, Trey, Shadow Drake, Joe Piercy, Alex F., Rainbow Dash, Teal'c Anderson, TV Killer, John Becker, Leon Reynolds, Raven Speedster, Zach Rakau, Mystery CU, Edgar Garcia, One Kingdom 1, Nissa Rusan, Vazuri, Dyslexic Character Sheets, Just a Random Boy, Hotrick Puncart, A Crazy Person, Ponyman365, Neapolitan, 6 of 9, Shyfire, and N-Stamp PUBG. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and live life to the fullest.